Morning, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Curtain of Leadership. So, in this series, we've been talking about this program subconscious belief system, what it is, how it works, how we've reinforced it, how it affects our ability to change, how it affects our ability to lead change with our teams. And today, I want to talk about what do you do about it? Okay, how do we change that program subconscious belief system? What do we do? What do we do about it? So I read somewhere that most of us don't know who we are, but we know what others expect us to be. You think about that for a minute. You think that's true? Does that apply to you? Do we know more about what others expect us to be than we know ourselves? And have we even kind of built our lives around what the expectations are of us? So if we're lucky, I think we know who we are, and we also know who others expect us to be. And so everything is in alignment. But how often does that really happen? You know, you can read studies and articles about how so many people are unhappy, unfulfilled, uninspired with their jobs and their lives, right? Suicide rates are increasing every year. People don't believe in, quote, the American dream. Health problems are constantly increasing. You know, people are more disconnected and polarized right now. I even read an article the other day saying that at least 58% of people who leave their jobs leave because of a toxic work environment created by the leadership of their company. Okay? The very leaders that we trust to create a good environment are actually creating a toxic environment, causing people to leave their jobs. It's discouraging to hear so much about all of this, and yet a lot of this can be alleviated by investing time and understanding ourselves from the inside. We spend a lot of time avoiding things that we don't like, mistakenly thinking that this will eventually make us happy, right? I coined a saying several years ago that goes like this. It's avoiding unhappiness is not the same thing as pursuing happiness. Okay? And that leads us to self-awareness, which is critical to all of us, especially those in leadership. One of the core elements of leadership is inspiring others to become something better tomorrow than they are today. True leaders inspire others, and you can only inspire others if you're inspired yourself. Yeah, you can motivate them, but you can't really inspire them, okay? I'm not sure we ourselves can be inspired if we don't understand ourselves from the inside, which is the core of self-awareness. So I can't really tell you exactly what your path should be towards understanding yourself, as nobody should follow another person's path on self-awareness. But I can share some things that I've found helpful for me and things I've learned from many other people over my career. The path to self-awareness all stems from at some point in time, we realize that there's something missing in our lives. Sometimes it's significant, and sometimes it's more of a nagging feeling that just doesn't go away. It doesn't matter how many things we buy, how many trips we take, our success at work, what we do to distract ourselves, the feeling remains. It's extremely personal, and we usually don't share it with others. It's also more difficult if you're a male because we were usually taught from a young age to hide our feelings as they're a sign of weakness. Yet, it's one of the most common things I've talked about with both men and women during my 45 plus year career when talking about their roles in leadership. Because these leaders know how they feel in their hearts is how they're going to lead and inspire those around them. So they're interested in knowing more about it. And what I found most of us will do when trying to understand ourselves is we'll search for books, articles, videos, maybe podcasts, groups on self-awareness. We do all those things, and there's no shortage of these materials, almost to the point of it being kind of cliche. You'll find all kinds of advertisements for this or that online. You'll start learning, and it'll lead to more and more options, different authors, different philosophies, different ideas, and some of it will make sense and some of it won't. But don't let that discourage you. If you have the need to understand yourself, learn more about yourself, as we all should, you'll explore many of these options until you find something that resonates with you in your heart and your soul, and you won't stop until you find it. It might take years, which is one reason why people don't pursue this idea. It takes too long, and they want it right now, today, this week. They want to know it. But when you think about it, and what I've experienced after so many years being around other people and leaders is the short-term mindset doesn't solve their problem. The need, the desire to understand ourselves grows. year after year, and it doesn't go away. It's okay for this process to take time because this is a lifelong journey, but it's critical to your development and eventual happiness as a person. And the point is, it's important to invest time and energy in becoming aware of who we are, what's important to us, what inspires us, what we hold on to when things are difficult, our fears, our insecurities, what we stand for, and what we're sharing with the world around us through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. This is especially true if you're in a leadership position, right? Because you influence people every day. Understand our personal weaknesses and strengths and learn to recognize these when they appear in our lives and how they affect people around us. The truly exceptional leaders I've been around understand this idea of self-awareness, and they encourage it with their team members, knowing if it helps them at a personal level, it can become inspiration, and it will come back to the team and everybody around them. And this is the third part of my 3 elements of leadership, right? Caring more about the team goals, the team's needs and wants than their own. Look, it takes courage to start down this path, but one every leader and every person should take for their own satisfaction, their own health and happiness. It takes courage because our consumer-based society doesn't support this. And when we find the more stuff that we buy or accumulate doesn't equate with happiness or fulfillment, we start rejecting society's push, right? And then we become more outsiders to some degree. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that we, should exclude ourselves from society in any way, shape, or form. But what it does mean is we need to be aware of what our personal internal inspiration is, and we follow that idea instead of what someone else is telling us we should do. And by doing that, you regain your right. When you tie all this back to the idea of our self-reinforcing programmed subconscious belief system I've talked about in this series, you see how we've been programmed by society since childhood. Every time we follow the programming, we buy the more expensive car, the bigger house, the better trip. We get more stuff because society says successful people do all these things, right? And we want to show society that we're successful. But when we do all this, we believe we're more successful, and it reinforces our program belief system. This is how the self-reinforcement part of it works. Now, this isn't inherently a good thing or a bad thing, and there's no judgment with any of this, but it's easy to see how we learn to run on this programmed subconscious belief system all the time, and everybody else is doing the same thing. So how you break free from this, or at least recognize how it's playing out in your life, is through self-awareness, okay? Learning about yourself, questioning the automatic reactions and responses and beliefs that you've carried your entire life. Ask yourself, why do I believe the way I do in these areas of my life? Why do I believe that you should believe this way in certain situations or circumstances? Why do you believe what you believe about certain types of people? Why do you believe what you need to do what others say you should do? And the question why, if taken to the 4th or 5th level, is very simple. Yet a powerful tool if you're really trying to get to the bottom of things, although you need another person to work with it. You have them ask you why. They say, why do I feel the need to do that? And then you say, well, because of this. And then that person will say, why do you believe that? That's the 5 whys of Kaizen, right? Because it usually takes 4 or 5 whys to actually start getting down to the root issue, the root thing that's causing you to do what you're doing. It's a very powerful yet simple tool to use when you're trying to figure out what is the root cause of why I do what I do. And another little trick, if you ever get to the point where you can only say, I don't know. Somebody says, Brett, why do you do that? And after 4 or 5, 6 reverses, I finally say, I just don't know. I don't know why I do that. The next question somebody asks you is, well, what if you did know? What would you say? What if you did know? What would you say? At that point, this final question takes all the pressure away from being right or wrong and allows you or anyone to just openly speculate, which will actually probably be closer to the truth you're looking for. So to wrap this all up, number 1, our self-reinforcing programmed subconscious belief system runs our lives on autopilot if we're not aware of it. All right. It keeps us in our comfort zone. It keeps us pushing back on things that we don't believe are true based on something that happened to us 20 years ago. Okay. Number two, self-awareness is a very powerful way to learn about ourselves and understand what's important to us, what inspires us. And if we're a leader, help us inspire others in the same way. And number three, it questions our belief system with intention. Okay, as we become more aware of how it's influencing our lives, the only way to break the autopilot and regain our personal power and freedom is to make conscious choices versus letting our belief system run our lives. Now, if you're like most of us, you want someone or something to give us the playbook, the process, right? The 10-step process on how to become self-aware and therefore break free of our belief system. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist, and it really doesn't work that way. But the process for each of us will be unique. It becomes a very personal path, and how each of us progresses will be different, as we're all unique individuals with 100% free choice in every decision we make. So if you do choose this path of self-awareness and adapt your lifestyle accordingly, and it helps you enjoy your life, great. That's awesome. Now, if you choose not to pursue this path and stay where you are, that's also great too, right? Because we all have an individual choice in how we want to look at things. Just understand whatever choice you make is your choice, not someone else's choice, and know that you have made the right decision for you and your situation. All this said, if you're a leader and you want to have a true impact on the people around you, it's difficult if you don't pursue your own self-awareness, right? You have to understand yourself before you can influence and inspire other people. If you don't, otherwise you're simply going to be following someone else's playbook that you read somewhere or you learned somewhere, which is probably not true for you and therefore not true for those that you're leading and trying to inspire. Anyway, I hope this is helpful to kind of tie up this series on our belief system. If you're interested, the link below to my YouTube channel, you can check out all my other videos on the other topics. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and there's also a link to my book on Amazon down below if you're interested in that. Anyway, take care. We'll see you next time on Behind the Curtain of Leadership.